But welcome to our monthly local phenology leader community practice call. I'm trying to kind of make this space so that local phenology leaders can get to know each other, meet each other, exchange tips and tricks, and just kind of be able to stay in touch for anything that they need help with their local phenology programs. Sometimes it's really active. Sometimes it's just the two of us. Either you
Yeah,
and me or me and someone else. But tell me a little bit about yourself.
yeah. So my name is Jan Galkowski, and I live in Westwood, Massachusetts, and we're fortunate to live in an area that's very wooded and forested. We're very close to something called Hale Reservation, which is across the way from us. And if you look at the botany literature, at least if you look at bryology, which is the area that I look at, people have actually gone into Hale and studied it since the 1930s in terms of botany and stuff. My interest is mosses and biology principally. So I've done some collecting in Hale and around the area. Unfortunately, I had to deal with a fall down some stairs, and so I was in the hospital for a time.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
and and so I'm coming back, and I have the biological community, international one, is actually very supportive, and there are some people who do macro photography and of bryophytes, and I asked them what the recommendations were, and so one of them who apparently does this professionally in England was able to set me up with a camera and a tripod, which I'm learning to use. And the feature is I don't have to crawl on the ground in order to take pictures of mosses. I can do it. I can do it standing up. So it's a very decent tripod, and then I'm going to getting a couple of lenses that allow me to stare down and take pictures of moss from a standing up position. So that'll be good. The goal long term would be to go back and continue collecting at the sites that I collected at, which two of them involve a couple of streams, and there's a lot of mosses around the streams and stuff. But meanwhile, while I'm learning how to use this camera and stuff, I've decided to work for our own yard here, which is very close, and we have two red buds here, and
Yeah,
so so
I just looked it up because I was like, gosh, his name sure is familiar. And yeah, you had sent me an email asking about the red buds. And actually
yeah.
that would be great to ask it here. So we can get that talked about and get that set up so other people can learn from it too. So that's great.
Right. So that's where I am. So I'm glad to be back and active again because my hiatus and not being able to for a while.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that you're okay and that you're ready to come back and take pictures of your mosses and that you
Thank
can
you.
do so easier now too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then and then Sarah, I just saw came in too, and it's okay if you need to stay like muted or camera off, but if you wanted to introduce yourself as well.
Hey, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Sarah. I work for the Allegheny Land Trust, and I just completed the fall cohort of the local phenology leadership program. And we're working on getting a project set up at one of our organization's green spaces called Barking Slopes. We're located out in Pennsylvania, and Barking Slopes is in New Kensington, PA. And we have high ambitions of monitoring a bunch of different wildflowers, along with a bunch of different invasive species, shrubs, trees, forbs alike. So
That's cool. And when you say ambitious, because I know in the course I'm always all like, start small, but you're like,
I
no.
know.
What are you guys thinking of monitoring, or how many
Oh
plants, I
gosh.
guess?
Well, perhaps up to 20. But we do have support from researchers who are also interested in these plants and will be participating in this project. Hence, the larger number might be okay.
Oh, totally. And
And
that's great. Yeah. Sorry.
no, you're fine. So we're hoping to monitor. We have all three species of knotweed. So we'll be monitoring Bohemian and Japanese knotweed. Giant knotweed is not on our list, but maybe in the future. We already have like so many native wildflowers that are competing with the knotweed. Trillium species, we have red trillium and the great or the large white trillium. Dicentra species, so we have the squirrel corn and Dutchman's breeches, hepatica, ramps, witch hazel, spice bush. We have a lot of honeysuckles down there that we want to keep an eye on. Let's see. Oh gosh. Oh, trout lily. I think those are the main. There's probably a few missing. That's just off the top of my head, but
Yeah, that's
there's a
okay.
few.
It's I'm not like, oh, I'm not gonna quiz you on it later. But then that's great that you got some researchers involved in it. Are there specific questions that they're looking for with these plants, or right now are you just trying to get some baseline data?
Right now, baseline data, they were previously looking at threats to local wildflowers, and I think they were measuring light availability and how like earlier leaf out is influencing all of that to the understory. So
Okay.
that's okay.
Oh, that's great though. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. Since I did the course, I think we did launch. I've been in and out. And it should be, I think most of my stuff is pretty stable now, but I've been in and out for the past few months. And so I'm still like playing catch up with that. But have you gotten to see like the new website then and being able to manage your, yeah, okay, good. Because I think it transitioned in the middle of your guys' course. So you kind of saw like, okay, excellent. Did you have any questions about that or anything? Because that was one of the topics I was going to go over today is if people had questions about managing their programs or their landing pages or anything like that. If anyone needed help with that.
I would just say it looks great. I found the information easier to find than how it was formatted previously. So
Oh, really?
great
Oh,
job.
that's good. I'll let the
Yeah.
IT team know because they like hearing that. That's excellent. Um, And so generally we used to kind of like have like, here's topics that I'm going to go over today, but I really wanted to make this space a little bit more community based and like for you guys to be able to catch up and, here are some things that we found or that we have questions about, or we're having trouble with bringing in some volunteers, or how should we do trainings, or just kind of like all those little things that it's like, yeah, in the course and in readings we have information on, but I don't know, it's kind of a lot of information. So being able to catch up on anything like that. And I saw John muted himself again, and that's okay. But did you, since you're getting your program set up and since you're fairly new to the program, did you have any questions or were looking for any guidance today?
Well, I just when I started into looking at the red buds, I started taking the part of the courses on from the website to talk about being an observer and that kind of stuff. Just so I know what that's about or what's expected of that. Um, the trouble with keep doing phenology of mosses is that they're not that well known, and so it's hard to find unless you hook up with a biologist or a professor or something at a university. It's hard to find people that will actually do them. Um, um, I mean, when I took botany in college, bryophytes were only a small portion of the total amount of stuff that we did. Matter of fact, my introduction to bryophytes, I went to college in Rhode Island. I was at a bog and we were walking over the top of the bog, and I literally fell in through the bog with my left leg into the bog, and the bog had a bunch of sphagnum floating on top of it, and so it was completely possible to go through it. And then later the professor introduced me to diving. So I put a mask on and went diving through the bog, and that was fun.
That's cool. Yeah, we
Yeah.
get requests for protocols for mosses and also for fungi, and we don't have the capacity to really add those to Nature's Notebook yet.
Sure.
But we do note that it's something that people request, so that if we can get that capacity to start adding those larger groups, it would be nice to be able to do so, because there's a lot of interest in mosses, or bryophytes and mosses, and also fungi, and the phenology of fungi, because there's not a lot of information about that either.
Right. Right. So you have to be flexible. So one of the things that the guidance that I was given, that since I can't easily go down to my streams again, because there are a lot of rocks there and I could fall in and stuff. So what they're suggesting is that I pick some genuses that are easy to track here, like here. So we have a lot of polytrichum mosses in the yard, and not much is. It turns out not much is known about phenology of polytrichum.
Hmm.
So that would be a natural thing to chase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's really cool. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with iNaturalist too, but iNaturalist might, because like I know with Nature's Notebook, we don't Nature's Notebook, we don't have like any way to be able to like enter moss data or anything like that.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
know with iNaturalist, you can do your observations of your polytrichum, and you can take a picture of it. And then when you go on your desktop, you can actually put in your own phenology notes for it as well, that can get into the, at least then you can be
Yeah,
tracking that.
that would be. Yeah, that would be good. One suggestion that I had was, and I understand that maintaining something like the Nature's Notebook site must be a huge effort, but it would be good if there was some place where people could archive photographs. You know, they might. It would be perfectly fine to say, well, you have to put the photographs through some minimum amount of documentation, like it has to be date and location and perhaps what the genus or something is that's enclosed in the picture. But still, having a place to put pictures of of mosses or even vascular plants. I mean, like the red buds would be a good thing to have, to be able to archive pictures. And with all the databases available nowadays, Google Photos or other places, it might not be that difficult to do, to have some place to throw pictures. Long as I said, as long as there's some documentation provided on each.
Yeah, and that's actually something that has been on our radar that we would like to be able to do, especially with phenophases. So like right now, like, on the app, it's kind of like a data sheet. One thing we would
Right.
really like to do is like the photo guides that we do, like Sarah, for the class, be able to have an example photo by each phenophase of each class in the app, actually, so that people could actually see this is what it's going to look like when you're documenting it. As
Right.
far as keeping photos for the purposes of like just documenting, I don't know. I don't think that's something that we would have the capacity to be able to do, especially because we're hoping for a way to like at least just get the photos for identification
Sure.
purposes. But if you're wanting to use photos for documenting, I am going to recommend iNaturalist for that, because they really are phenomenal for focusing on the photo documentation. And not only that, but because they're a kind of a crowdsourced information, or for identification, it can also um, help people learn how to identify the mosses and see, be able to get more engagement with that. They even have a project. They have projects, and I know some people are looking at mosses with projects on iNaturalist too. And so that might be something to look into and see if your
Yes, I
courses
will
would be.
definitely check that out. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But for the red buds, you had a question about the eastern and the western red buds.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, but you weren't sure how to like to delete the Western redbud from your delete the Western redbud from your site. To do
Yeah.
that, you'll have to do it online. So we can't do that on the app. But if you go to my observation deck on our website,
Okay.
and I can actually show you how to do this. So hold on. So for deleting a plant, and this is something that I think is something that's beneficial for everybody. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, because it's definitely one of those things that I get questions about, is how to delete plants. And so you should be able to see the Nature's Notebook website on my screen here. I go to Observed in Nature's Notebook, I go to my observation deck. And it likes to think, especially when I'm on Zoom. But I'll show you how you can add and edit the plants at your sites. And actually, this will be great
Great,
for
thank you.
all phenology programs. Oh, come on, get me there. It's got to think about it for a minute. But you can delete your own plants, and the way that you delete it will have different kind of prompts, and I'll show you that too. Oh, but it really is not happy with this. Observe with Nature's Notebook. Let's try this again. I am logged in. Well, I'll tell you about it while this is thinking about what it wants to do. Basically, if you go to your observation deck on the website, you'll see like a list of your sites on the first tab. And then you can pick the sites that have your redbud trees, and then you can click on that Western redbud, and underneath it, it'll say add or edit, or it'll say like edit plant. Once you selected that plant, you can click edit plant, and then you'll have a list of options, and you can click delete plant. So if it's one where you haven't entered any data on it, you can just say like test data, and it'll just remove it from the website. If it was a misidentified species, it prompts you to email us, because then if it's a species, like let's say you want it to be a Eastern redbud, and you've entered data on it for a long time, then you can, I got a gateway timeout. Then you can email us, and then we can switch it to an Eastern redbud. But if you haven't collected a lot of data on it yet, it's way easier for you to just like delete it, say it was a test plant, and then add your Eastern redbuds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then Sarah, do you have any questions about your program that you're getting set up? And how's it going so far? Do you have volunteers yet, or kind of what stage are you at?
Well, we are at a stage where we're setting up a meeting with one of our collaborating researchers to go down and start marking the plants sometime in April or May when they're easier to identify. and and before this call, I just got off of a professional development that I was leading about some of the climate focused community programs that our organization is doing, one of them being a geocaching activity, and also the Barking Slopes project. So we've announced that it's underway to the general, I would say it's the PAEE community, that's the Pennsylvania Association for Environmental Educators. So it was just there to, they could source ideas from it, and odds are none of them probably live close enough to participate in the project because it's all over Pennsylvania. But yeah, we are at that stage of just, making it known that it's coming.
That's great though. For your plants and tagging them, do you kind of know about where you want? Is it still you have to go out, you know which plants you want to do, and it's just a matter of going out and finding them, or?
Oh, yes. So it is along an existing trail that people are on barking slopes that, just community members are free to walk around and explore. So the challenge will be, because barking slopes is subject to landslides,
Oh.
and we've had some big ones happen, is to make sure we put the markers where they're not going to get squished.
Yeah, that's wild. Is it like, is that part of what you guys are looking at, is like landslides and or not restoration, but you know, how, what's the word? I haven't thought of that word since college. Um, but you know, things fall and gets disturbed and the plants have to come back. So are you looking at patterns in those with the landslides, or is it just one of those, this is something we deal with and so we've got to prepare for it?
That would be really cool to incorporate. But yeah, this was just a general monitoring program that was more focused on supporting the ongoing research, potential future research projects. So we can definitely loop that in. Thank you for mentioning it.
I'm just curious.
um, but yeah, there was just so much happening with that piece of property. It was actually right across from a power plant that recently shut down. So we're just general monitoring under all of this human caused pressure. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
hoping to keep this going for a few years.
that's great. So I guess, are you saying that what you guys are just trying to look at is what is even going on with all the plants here in the first place?
Exactly. Because barking
All right.
slopes doesn't really make sense for all of the stuff that has happened. It's just so incredibly diverse in wildflowers and wildlife. Um, yeah, we're just trying to make sense of it at this
Yeah.
point.
Oh, that's great though. I think that's still that's good because you can't decide what you want to do if you don't even know what's going on. So that's great. Are you bringing in like volunteers from the community for it, or do you guys have already like a docent system, or how do you guys do that?
Yeah, we would be hoping to recruit some volunteers. Our organization has a stewardship department, and they have their own volunteer database that helps with trail maintenance. Um, so we're hoping to reconnect with the folks that like to come to Barking Slopes to help clean the trails. I don't know when the last trail clearing or cleaning maintenance event was out at Barking Slopes. Um, but we're also hoping to bring in some master gardeners, master naturalists, any local nature clubs. We've already had master gardeners reach out to us. They're interested in this opportunity that um, is underway, and we might be meeting with them in September to show them the trail and see if this is a thing that they want to get involved with. So
That's so cool. Especially, yeah. Sorry, I just in my brain it's like the master gardeners. I always think about them like gardening at home and everything, but of ways that they can. Oh no, I think that's great that they can go out and volunteer and use their knowledge to help you guys out.
uh,
Oh, cool. Um, did you have any, I guess, questions for me too? Well, I've got you here. Especially since a lot of times I'll have questions from local phenology leaders, and they always think that they're the only ones with that question, but that is why we have these meetings, is because they're never. But it's okay also if you're just feeling good and ready to go. And yeah, that's all right. Um, and then I guess we can finish the meeting early if you guys want to finish the meeting early, because I know that there's only three of us here and I don't want to like force you guys into conversation or anything like that. But John, do you have any other questions, especially about like the red buds or anything like that?
No, I don't. I find coming to meetings like this is very useful, as well as going attending meetings of the New England Botanical Society.
Mm,
And also, I'm taking a course at the present time about peat mosses from Eagle Hill in Maine. There's a place in Maine called Eagle Hill that does a lot of courses, live courses that teach you field work, as well as video courses. And this one is about by a professor from Duke University who's teaching us about sphagnum principally and other peat mosses and things like that. And he's very big on phylogenetics. So what he's doing is he's uh, teaching us about they sequence the DNA in the mosses, the sphagnum mosses that they're studying for the most part. So they not only sequence nuclear DNA, but they also do chloroplasts and mitochondria in the mosses, and those are different histories, and so they allow you to differentiate the different mosses from one another, and they're learning a lot of very interesting things. It's almost like you think that if you have a herbarium, say, um, uh, down the road, you would think that the herbarium would sequence the DNA of one specimen that they have in order to keep track of things. That would be very useful. And so he's teaching us about what these sequences can be used for and comparing them and stuff. And so sphagnum mosses tend to hybridize a lot, and you can't show that unless you actually sequence them. I mean,
That
I don't know how frequently other plants hybridize. I suppose there's some.
I know. I mean, I know that there's a lot. I always like learned animals was what my background really is, but I do know
Yeah.
that plants get really complicated hybrids sometimes, and it can be even with Nature's Notebook sometimes like what plants people want to enter, they're like, wait, but this one's a weird hybrid. And so it can be a little tricky with that, but I can imagine mosses doing it a lot.
Yeah, well, he's got colleagues in Norway, for example, and they do European mosses, and there's a lot of comparison with the East Coast of the United States with Europe, and there are some mosses that are related and that kind of stuff that they're trying to figure out. You know, did did the spores cross the ocean? You know, that kind of thing, and
Oh,
and
that's cool.
yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, yeah, like I said, if you guys have more questions or anything else, I'm definitely here for you, but I don't want to make you stay for too long. Um,
Sure. The one question that I have. So as we get into the Nature's Notebook more and this kind of stuff, is it okay to email you with questions
oh,
about
it's
him?
absolutely okay with email me with questions. Yeah, lately I've been a little slow with my email because I've had a lot of
No,
chaos.
it's right.
But yes, it is absolutely appropriate to email us with any questions that you have. And I'm
Okay.
yeah, definitely happy to help them out, especially because we have transitioned to the new website. So sometimes there's some bugs that come up. So when people email us to mention the bugs, that's helpful because then we can see if this is like a one-time thing or if there's an internal issue that we need to fix. But yeah, if you have any sort of questions about observing or even identifying phenophases or anything like that, definitely shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Is there any kind of effort to um, at NPN to sort of standardize reports of phenology? Um, like I'm talking about like it depends of course on what the species or genus is that you're watching, but um, is there some notation to report like that this is after flowering or something or
Yeah, so with our plant, with all the plants and animals that we have available with Nature's Notebook, all of those, the phenophases have been standardized and we have specific definitions for each of those. Um,
okay,
and that's why we're limited with the number of plants and animals we can do because we do actually make sure we have the protocols because like a flower from one plant can look very, very different from a flower from another
right,
plant and even leafing out. So we do have the standardized protocols for each of those. We are also working with other organizations, actually, such as iNaturalist and Project Budburst and other phenology organizations to make a phenobase um, kind of um, database that brings in all the different phenology data from the different organizations because there's no way for us all to be able to change all the protocols to be exactly the same across organizations. But what they're working on is making all that standardized in the database so that all this information coming together can all be used by researchers together. So they don't have to go to USA-NPN to get some phenology data and then INAT to get some phenology data. all that data can be in one place.
So on that point in particular, will there be, is there some way of, if you put stuff in iNaturalist and you want to refer to it in a report or something on NPN, is there, do you just specify the URL, or how do you link it? How do you indicate which it is?
If it's
Is there,
from Moss, there's just no way to connect Moss to NPN right now. But if
right,
you collect the data on the Moss phenology to iNaturalist, then
right.
eventually all the phenology data would go to Phenobase that then will be made
Okay,
available. But it
so it's
wouldn't be
Phenobase,
available through Nature's Notebook because we just have the plants and animals that we
right,
have. But that's what we're working on with this Phenobase project, is making sure that, like with a redbud, right? Because some people put the redbud data on iNaturalist, some people use Nature's
right.
Notebook, so that all that redbud data can go together for researchers to be able to use.
So is Phenobase an organization out south? Do they have their own website?
I think you can look up Phenobase. I know it's not a completed project yet. It's something that we're actively working on with other organizations as basically a
Okay,
way, like a database that's available to researchers to be able to access all that data.
okay, I will check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. With that, I'll release you guys on this beautiful Friday afternoon. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your questions and comments. And yeah, if you have any more questions, just please feel free to reach out. And on the third, our meetings are on the third Fridays of each month. So I should look at my calendar. And our next meeting then will be on looks like March 15th. So we'll see you guys again on March 15th. Thank
Very
you so
good.
much.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
weekend,
you.
both of you.
You too.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
And it's so good to see
Yeah,
you.
bye. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.